couldn't find him at his house. They beat him up because he hasn't paid back the money he borrowed from John. John then gives him $240 for the month's principal and interest. But the moneylender doesn't like this and hits him again because, according to him, he still hasn't paid back enough. John starts to cry because he feels helpless and asks for forgiveness. He also promises to give back all the money within the time limit, but they keep beating him up until they hear a voice telling him to stop. They all look in the direction the boys came from and see Suhu marching towards them in his most angry mood. John recognizes his brother right away, but Suhu keeps walking toward them with anger in his eyes. John gets down and asks Park John if he's really his brother to make sure, and then we see a flashback to before the grave disaster. Even in the story about the past, it doesn't change. Some people at school are beating up John Do. He's still helpless, but he sees his brother nearby and calls for help. Surprisingly, Suhu doesn't even move or look back when John Doe screams for help. Maybe he doesn't believe in himself because this happened before he was a warrior in the wild. On the day of the big disaster, John Hall sees how useless his brother is. John Hall was watching TV when all of a sudden news of a big explosion came on. When he sees that his brother isn't home yet, he runs to the door, but his aunt and uncle stop him. When they find out that John is home and tells them about his parents, they feel a little better, but even they don't know where his parents are. He then says that Suho isn't home yet, but their building was destroyed by a huge explosion. When General gets up, he looks in the mirror and sees a big "I have a monster" staring back at him. Since then, it doesn't matter to him if his brother is still alive or dead. They never really got along well enough for it to matter. Now we turn back to the present, where Joe is still shocked after seeing his brother Suhu commonly joke about how old he has become, even though he's his younger brother. Joe, still in shock, asks why he's still alive and well, but their conversation is interrupted by the moneylender, who believes that both of them are mentally ill. This annoys Suho, and he can't stand someone insulting his brother anymore, so he grabs his head and smashes it to the ground. This showed Janelle his newfound strength, which she had never seen before. The second one tries to fight him, but Suho stops his kick in midair and snaps his leg. This was a horrible sight for the third one to see, so he starts to beg for mercy and says he didn't even touch his brother. Suhu then gives him all of his money, which he earned by hunting monsters. The moneylender gets his money, and they both start to leave. When they get to Joe's place, Suhu runs into the same old lady who told him to leave in a rude way, but this time she acts differently because she knows that he is his brother John. They go inside, where John shows Suhu his sleeping son, Gan-woo. He tells him that his son has become his top priority and that he will do anything for him. When Suhu asks where the kid's mother is, John tells him that she left the family to live alone. He blames himself for this because he wasn't able to give Suhu enough money because of his financial problems. Suhu then asked him for a drink so they could sit down and talk. After all, John has a lot to say, and the fact that he always thought Suhu died on the day of the disaster and is now coming back as an awakening is probably the craziest thing that happened. Suhu then helps him figure out how much debt he has. He finds out that it's $50,000, and John tells him not to worry about it because he just got a new job and can pay off all of his debt. Sue asks what does he do for a living, so John Doe tells him that he now works at a store. Suhu has a thought, so he asked him who owns the truck he uses. The general told him that he doesn't own that truck, but that it belonged to landowner Granny's son, who died in the Great Disaster. Now, she takes care of his son because she thinks of him as her own. As they talked about guns, we woke up. To his surprise, he found a dog next to him, which made him feel better right away. Even more happy, he sees that his dad has come back. When he asked John how about Suhu, he found out that John Hao is his uncle. He says hello and asks nicely if he can play with Suho's dog. Suhu smiles and says yes, which makes Gumbo happy because he's always wanted a dog, but his family couldn't afford one. Suhu then tells his brother about his idea. He tells him that he could work with him and that they could make a lot of money together, but they would need Janos' truck. When John asks him what he is thinking about, Soho tells him about hunting monsters. The next day, Suhu goes to the Awakener Bureau, tells them that he leveled up in just one day. This is a surprise to them. Then the receptionist gives him a smartphone called the X-Phone 50 and tells him to download the Awakener Bureau app to find out the latest news about the mercenary exam and when it will be held. She also tells him that they are having trouble with the stat screens since Suhu asked her about it in a strange way. Suhu sees that he is still on level 1, which explains why he was feeling weak now that he has everything he needs. He is ready to get his strength back and hunt monsters. Suho then calls his brother John to tell him what happened. John is happy for him that he is finally a full-fledged mercenary and wishes him luck on the exam. He tells him that he will be there when his job is done. Suho doesn't want to waste any time, so he told him to come right away so they can go monster hunting for debt. John then tells her that it's way too early for that because he's just a weird Suho and doesn't like excuses, so he puts the phone down. John Hill sees that his brother has changed a lot. It's not the same week when John, who used to know a lot about Suho, starts looking for the closest place to hunt. A lot of cars are waiting to get into the hunting ground. Because hunting monsters is hard. No one is ever alone with their teams. We see a group of 5 people getting ready to go hunting. 3 of them are scared, even though we woke them up, but the 2 in front are ready to go. They tried to calm down their teammates, but then Suho walked in. The person at the front desk asks for his awakened ID, lets him in, and tells him not to go into dungeons. Everyone can see that Suho is walking around without any weapons or equipment, as if monsters don't bother him at all. The police guards talk about what Suho has done, such as killing 7 goblins at Gate 27. The group we met earlier found Suho interesting, so they decided to follow him. When they got to the hunting grounds, though, they lost sight of him. Suho starts running sprints to see what he can do. He wants to test himself in a fight to see how far he can go. Suddenly, he hears a lot of voices, and when he turns around, he sees 2 groups of people fighting with swords and brutally cutting each other's limb. Suho sees that there are too many of them and that it will take a long time to kill them all, so he decides not to go after them and instead looks for someone with a higher bounty. Lucky for him, a man named Joy Groshek shows up with a $40,000 reward. Suho was about to leave, but when he heard $40,000, he stopped. He wonders how strong someone has to be to have a bounty of $40,000 on their head. People who are fighting with swords start to run away because they're happy to see him. Choi then challenges the 3 people who were trying to get his attention to a fight, but they know they have no chance against the Joy. They start to bargain and offer everything if he lets them go, but Joy turns down their offer because he doesn't like letting people go. Just as Troy was about to crush them, Suho came out of nowhere and stood in front of Troy without showing any fear. Everyone was shocked because this idiot came out of nowhere and was standing in front of Troy without showing any sign of fear. Choi asks him who he is and why he is there. Choi gets angry and asks again who he is. Suho says someone who needs money. Everyone starts to worry about him because no one fights a C ranker for such reasons, and Suho seems like a kid to them. Joy tells him that this is the worst choice he has ever made, and that he would have been better off if he had just stayed away. Suho doesn't even flinch. All of a sudden, he feels like his body has frozen and he can't move. Joy tells him that he made a mistake by looking into his eyes for more than 5 seconds and that he can use his powers on him. He then tells his men to break every bone in his body and sue him. But before that, Suho punches him. And no one, not even Choice, can figure out how he did it because no one can escape Choice's power. When Joy looks at Ku's face, he sees something that really scares him. He sees Ku's most menacing and evil look. The look of someone who is ready to kill him brutally, and he realizes that he has just made the biggest mistake of his life and will now die because of it. Suho almost hits him, but at the last second, Shoei uses his ability to bind Suho. He feels a little better and thinks the threat is over. He tells Suho that he knows he is strong, but he can beat him. Joy gets his knife and uses it to stab him, but Suho gets out of it again and kicks him far away. He tells Joy that he can't do anything besides use his mind power, which doesn't help him against Suho. The other 3 think it's amazing that someone was able to beat Choice so easily. Suho is then surrounded by Choice men whose swords are stained with the blood of people they've killed. When Sue asks them if they want to fight, the men realize that this is their only chance to live because they can't beat him. Then they all beg for forgiveness and tell him that there's no reward on their heads, so he can't use his strength to make them work for him. And now they can just run away. Sue asks for a rope to tie up his Tui, and one of the 3 guys gives it to him. He is angry that his men betrayed him and calls them traitors. They say that they have always hated him and that this is their chance to get away. Joy figures out that he can't do everything by himself, so he tries to convince Suho to let him go. He tells Suho that if he lets him go, he will do everything he can to make Suho king of the city. He thinks Suho will agree to his terms, but Suho kicks him so hard that he passes out. Suho asks them to choose men again for their bounty, but they keep telling him that they are useless and that killing them won't help. But the three hunters tell Suho that every single one of Choi's men is a criminal with a bounty on their head. Suho decides to go after them to make some extra money. Later, the three hunters help Suho with their car. When they thanked him, he told them he wasn't there to help them at all. He then asked them what their special power was. The leader said that after waking up, he became a swordsman and learned some other skills from books. Suho was surprised that you could learn skills from books, so he decided to learn more from them. They don't understand how Suho can be so strong but not know about the skill books. Just to find out, he asks you what level he is, and when he says he's just a F ranker, everyone is shocked because how could a rookie F ranker hunt down a C ranker hunt down a C ranker? Suho then asks them about the portal, and they tell him it's a level 1 dungeon, and only well-known and strong mercenaries are allowed to go there. They wanted to go there, but they didn't have enough strength to do so. Then Suho asked them what the favor was. They wanted to ask him because they thought he could help them. Then we see Captain King and his team come out of a portal feeling frustrated. His team is badly hurt, which makes him angry because he doesn't want to work with amateurs and whiners. He tells them to stop crying like babies. He then says that he will get them fired because the Awakened Bureau doesn't need idiots who can't even protect themselves. Then his partner calms him down and tells him how the system works now. Rich and powerful parents use their power to turn their kids into hunters. They pay professional mercenaries to kill monsters on their kids' behalf and train them, while the kid uses his parents' money to become a mercenary. He still doesn't learn anything useful and is still a burden on his teammates. Captain thinks it's unfair that rich people can get by with less work and time, even in this profession. Normal people have to deal with the results of their actions. Captain King then asks the guards if anything happened today, and he finds out that someone delivered. When a C Raider is defeated, 10 Rangers, including a C-rank boss named Joy, can be shot. So he asks which high-ranking mercenary did it. The guards then told him that it was a high-ranking person who did it, but a new F-ranker. That fighter was so strong that he broke multiple ribs of Joy, which is hard to do because of his choice ability. Kong remembers right away that Suho thinks he's to blame for everything. He asked the guard right away where this F was going. The last time they saw him was when he went through the portal, the guards told him. He already knew enough about him. So Captain Kang runs to the portal because he wants to see for himself how strong Suho is. Captain Kang then asks the person running the portal through which door the Suho came in. Suho has already gone through the portal with new clothes, which he likes. He finds out that because of dimensional energy, normal clothes can't go through portals, but these special clothes can't. They are expensive, but they do the job. Suho then notices something different. He then asks what it is. His partner tells him that hunters can get into 38 different dungeons through doors or paths. The door they just used was number 24. All of a sudden, the door is gone, and Suho wants to know what happened. He finds out that the door won't come back until the dungeon is cleared. Then Suho asks him what it means to clear a dungeon. Does it mean killing a monster? If so, that would take a long time, and Suho is the last person who wants to spend so much time there. His partner tells him that all they have to do to open the door is kill the strongest one. This makes Suho more excited because he wants to hunt down the strongest. Then he rushes to find the strongest monster because he can't wait to kill it. Suho's partner, on the other hand, knows something is wrong because Suho isn't good at tracking. Even if he gets lost, so what? If that happens, the dimension will destroy them both. He knows that this is a big deal, so he sets out to find him. Then we see monsters from that world. They are big and mean, and they want to kill something. They heard a voice, and before any of them could turn around, Suho kicked one of them to death. He then started killing everyone brutally and without pity. After he stabs them, he finds one blood crystal that he can sell for money. He leaves so he can find the big one. But when his partner gets there, he sees a lot of dead goblins, and it looks like a massacre. Suho earns skill points by killing so many goblins that he can now use them to learn skills. He has a lot of choices but decides to call on the tree spirit. The tree spirits call Suho. He remembers this from his time in another world. He then tells the tree spirit to go find more goblins. Because trees and grass are all connected, the tree spirits can talk to him through them. He then checks that screen and sees that he has moved up a level. The number of things he's done is 345. Then he sees that he can search and track, which will help him hunt. He spends his last point on these two skills because he knows how important they are. He starts to mark the whole area with the search skill, and then he uses the tracking skill to find something that isn't a goblin. It's something big and strong, making it the perfect target for him right away. When he gets to the battle site, he sees that his partner is already fighting the monster, but is having trouble getting the upper hand. Suhu yells at him because he told him to stay at the door and not go hunting alone. He tells Suhu that he isn't hunting, but is instead being hunted. The monster doesn't care about what they are saying. It only wants to kill. He tries to stab, but Suhu kicks him away before he can get back up. Suhu kicks it so hard that it bleeds all over. Suhu doesn't give it a chance to run away or fight back. He hits it over and over until he finally kills it. Suhu levels up and gets 120 points right away, but his partner is still shocked because he has probably never seen a hunter be so cruel. Suhu then asks his partner if the door will open now, since he doesn't mind hunting someone stronger. But this kill was enough to open the door. Since their job was done, they both went back through the portal, and everyone was surprised to see them. One guard remembers that Captain King asked him to let him know if that farrier came back. Then Unum says he has to go because he needs to meet with his team. He also thinks he will thank him one more time for all the help he has given. After getting dressed, when Suho goes outside, he meets Captain King, who is excited to see him. Captain King asks Suhu if he is Park Suhu and introduces himself as Captain Kang Min Yok, the captain of the 27th Combat Team of the Schiller Guild. He then asks Suhu for a few minutes, and they go to a bar to talk in private. The king then offers Suhu the chance to join the Scylla Guild and promises him a good place to work. Suhu says no right away, which makes Kang mad, but he tries to hide it. He then asks Yu if he is part of another guild, and if he is, they will send an official offer to his guild. Suhu says again that he doesn't have a guild and is just working alone. The king then tries to convince him by telling him that the Scylla Guild is ranked 4th and is one of the strongest in the world. He tries to convince Suhu that joining the guild will help him in many ways. But Suhu turns him down again because he can't stand working for someone else when he knows he's the best. And the best should be the king, not a subordinate. King doesn't like the way he acts, but he knows there's nothing else he can do right now to change his mind. John Hill and his son were not there when Suhu got back home. He thinks that they might spend some time together as father and son, which would be good for them. He then goes to the roof and lies down to rest. Granny told him to stop being lazy because he was young and could work. Suhu then started helping the grandmother. She then asked him again if he was really John's older brother because she thinks he's getting older backwards. Suhu jokes that he didn't age backward. Instead, he aged forward. Even though Granny doesn't understand it, she believes it because the world has changed so much in the last 10 years. She then tells him to take care of himself because he now has a family to love and care for. And losing a family member is the worst thing that can happen. Suhu tells her that he can't be killed, but she tells him that people who say things like that are the first ones to die. When John and One Gun come back, they ask Granny where Suhu is. She tells them that he is upstairs waiting for them. When he asks what's in the envelope, Suho gives him a real one. When he asks what's inside, Sue tells him it's $50,000 so he can pay off all of his debts. At first, Suho is shocked and won't take the money because he thinks he won't be able to pay it back. He starts crying because he never thought he'd see this day. But Suhu tells him to stop crying and thank God for saving his life. He then leaves to pay off all of his debts. Suhu checks his screen while Gun plays with the dog and sees a message that says the target is following. Suhu doesn't know what this means about guns. Then we asked him what they were going to call the dog. Suhu let him choose, and he said Vika. Suhu agreed. He also sees BQ's level on the screen that shows his stats. Then Suhu starts to play with them both. And just like that, the evening has gone by. When the journalist's truck comes back, they go downstairs to meet him. But to their surprise, they see John Hill covered in blood and struggling to walk. He falls to the ground when no one tries to wake him up. And Suhu starts to wonder what happened to his brother after that. We see a group of people in an office. They were talking about the odds for betting on the SBF championship tournament when they heard a loud noise outside. When the door opens, one of the bad guys tells them they're in trouble, and then he's grabbed from behind. Someone is beating up all the crowds, and when they see two angry eyes in the dark, they start to wonder who it is. Those were Suhu's eyes, and he then picked up a bench with one hand and threw it at the monk. He does a lot of damage here, and everyone gets hurt a lot. Then he moves slowly toward the boss, who still has no idea what's going on. Suhu then asks him if he's Kim Jong. He says, yes, that's my Kim. Suhu tells him he's here to pay off a debt. Kim tells him that the government won't like it if he attacks them if he wakes up. Suhu doesn't care that he told him not to, so he hits him so hard that his teeth fall out. He keeps hitting him and tells him that he shouldn't have gone too far by beating up his brother. Then they all ask Suhu for forgiveness and promise not to bother Junho again. Soo-hoo left the place right away, but this still makes the boss mad. He tells his employees that he knows powerful people and will definitely get his own back. On the other hand, Captain Kang shows his boss, Mr. Park Soo-ho, his profile when he gets to the guild headquarters. He tells them that he is the best person they could get, but when they both tried to learn more about him, a message that said access denied popped up. Pork finds that both shocking and interesting, so they both hacked into the system to look at his profile. When they look at his stats, they are impressed and can't believe he's only a rookie. Quinlan says they should do everything to get this guy, but his boss thinks he's not a mercenary. They look into it and find that he hasn't been seen for 10 years. This makes them think that he might be a government spy. Kings keeps trying to persuade Park, but Park says it's a waste of time to try to get something they can't get. Kang then only wants to hear about him once a week, but it's been turned down again. Soo-hoo goes to the hospital to see his brother John, who reminds him that the mercenary exam is tomorrow. Soo-hoo tells him that he is aware of that and is ready for it. But he doesn't like the idea of working for someone else because he used to be the king of the jungle. John then tells him that he can look for some high-ranking guilds for him. But Soo-hoo doesn't want to join because he wants to start his own guild. Then we see Sue again at the headquarters of the Awakener Bureau. Her boss tells her off because there have been 2 outbreaks in her area. She tells him she's doing the best she can. He then gives her a letter which makes her angry because it's another job offer and she has to go to an exam. Her boss tells her not to turn down too many people at the test center, like she always does. There are a lot of people who are ready to take the test. We also see a guy live streaming the whole thing until Soo-ho crashes his stream. The Major, Kim Jong-soo, then introduces himself and tells everyone that they will be assigned to one of 21 supervisors. Everyone starts to wish for a good supervisor, but the Major says that the assignment will be completely random and will be done through a lottery. The process starts and everyone starts to get their supervisors. Han Dong-soo and Soo-ho get the same supervisor, number 15. Surprisingly, Soo-jung is number 15. And when Soo-ho figures out who she is, everyone starts making plans, and Soo-ho notices that Dong-soo is sad. He asked him why he said that now, since he was very happy not long ago. He tells Soo-ho that they're doomed because that blonde trainer is a witch and fails everyone based on her mood. Soo-ho tells him that he's just making excuses, which angers the dogs, who then tell him to show some respect to his elders. Soo-ho then tells him to settle things like a man and stop being a baby. Dong-soo gets angry because he thinks he's stronger, so he challenges Soo-ho to a fight. When Soo gets there, she finds that no one is there. She starts to wonder what's going on the other side, where Soo-ho and Hang Zhao are fighting dogs in a cave. Hang Zhao keeps reminding Soo-ho of what he's done because he thinks Soo-ho is going to kill him. He tells Soo-ho that he's a rising YouTube boxer, but Soo-ho doesn't know what that means. Everyone thinks Soo-ho is stupid, so they start cheering for Dong-soo. Dong-soo is happy because he thinks the fight will be easy. He says it as a joke that he won't pay the medical bill. Soo-ho is ready to fight too, because he has become addicted to it. Him. Dong-soo then shows how fit and quick he is by attacking Soo-ho. But before anything could happen, Soo-jung shows up and stops the fight. She tells everyone to go back or she will fail them right away. Everyone goes back except Dong-soo and Soo-ho. She then asks if they want to fail if they do something like that. Dong-soo starts to explain that it's not really his fault, but she quickly stops him and tells him that there's no need for explanations because one of them has to take the blame. She then tells them to keep fighting and the loser will be out of the game. So the first part of this man's argument wins. Well guys, if you liked this video and want a second part, comment below with the word Soo-hoo also. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, like the video, and most importantly, leave a comment until the next video.